Hey, what's up, everyone? Quentin Figueroa with SlayerMint.com. And I'd like to talk to you about, can the government make Bitcoin illegal? Now, of course, the government can make Bitcoin illegal, right? They can pass a law for whatever they want to do, right? Some countries already have made Bitcoin illegal. Others will in the future, right? So, of course, it can happen. But the question is, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to make something illegal? And what are the ramifications and consequences of that? Right? So just looking at it kind of big picture, right? Bitcoin, it's a threat to the financial industry, like in particular, like central banks like the Fed of the United States. I mean, these banks kind of get what their power is, what makes them important, and then they get kind of what cryptocurrency like Bitcoin is doing, and they kind of see the contradiction there. They see kind of the problems, or the friction. And so, yeah, these are kind of problems or things that they need to kind of figure out and that people need to weigh and think about, right? So it's a threat in the sense that the printing press, right, was a threat to religion when it came out. So like any new technology that comes around, it's going to threaten and it's going to kind of push old industries, old ways of doing things, old technologies in a direction that's not like comfortable, that they might not like, right? So the printing press with the religion, it's like religion now had to kind of expose more information. You were no longer getting your information from priests, but you were getting it now from the book, the source that they were using, and you're able to kind of more easily see and understand like what actually this stuff is about. With the internet, of course, right? So now newspapers and TV, they face challenges with the internet because it's like you don't need a newspaper anymore. You don't need to wait for news to come around, once a day in a newspaper. You don't need to turn on your TV at a scheduled time to get news. It's like you can just go, pull it up on your phone, go search for whatever you want and see what's happening like in real time. So that's a technological advancement that's kind of making an older industry more obsolete, right? So what happens is the world becomes flat as these technological advancements happen, right? So it becomes more flat in the sense that you don't have these middlemen anymore. It's like you go directly to what you're trying to use. So before, you would have a priest that would be kind of between you and God, or you and your understanding of your religion. But with the Bible being printed, right, the printing press and whatnot, you could just go directly to the Bible now, or directly, you could get that information more easily. Same thing with the internet, right? You don't have these middlemen anymore as much. It's flattening them out. They don't have to go in between you and the information you're getting. Travel agents, all these different kind of entities, these people that used to do like, third-party services. You're like, well, I can just go direct to what I need without the need for you anymore. So that's flattening the world a bit, right? We're seeing kind of this happen. And that's what Bitcoin is now starting to do to the financial industry, right? We are seeing a flattening of, well, we're gonna start to see it more, I think, the flattening of the financial industry. For the longest time, we've had banks that kind of determine the rules of money and that we go through if we want to do kind of commerce stuff, right? I mean, pretty much everyone has a bank account, and that's how you do stuff. You have this middleman that manages your money, that tells you what you can and can't do with it. But now we're removing that middleman through Bitcoin, right? So that's this technological increase and this flattening of the world through technology. So crypto is now out of the bag, right? The whole understanding of how this decentralized trust money system works, and that you can do it this way, that's out of the bag. People know about it now. So you can't really stop that idea, right? If you were to stop Bitcoin, it's like, there's thousands of other cryptos. So those will just take over, take its spot, and you're going to now have to stop them. So you can't really stop that idea anymore. That's done. So it's like you have to stop it another way. And that becomes quite a challenge for the government to do. And let's go through kind of an example of that with the music industry to see why. So I know some of you younger people probably don't really remember Napster, but people like myself, in their 30s, when Napster first came out like 20 years ago or so, it was like game changing. It was awesome because, before that we were kind of listening to music on CDs. We would burn CDs, we would buy CDs, we would do this kind of that's how we would do music, right? We would use CDs. And so now Napster comes along kind of as broadband internet is becoming more popular and people can download stuff quicker. So these people come out with Napster, and like overnight, it's like it explodes and everybody's using it. You're like, frick, I can go download any song I want. It takes like 5 seconds, and I have that song. So like people just go crazy, and that was like the beginning of file sharing. That was like where file sharing and the whole sharing of music and the whole like this whole thing just kind of started and blew up, right? So that was a problem for the music industry, of course, because how do they make money off that? I mean, people aren't they're not charging people to get these songs. People just sharing them for free with each other. And where does the music industry fit in, right? Where does that third party fit in to take a cut or to make money? So you had that whole piece going on, right? So before Napster, musicians used a label, and some musicians still do use labels, but a label is a third party in that music industry, right? So because most people 20, 30 years ago didn't really have the technology like a personal computer or of course the internet to record and get distribution. But these days, freaking fire up your laptop, throw up a mic, record your stuff, edit it, and then just upload it to the internet, and it's a done deal. We didn't have that back then, and so you had labels, right? But now with the advent of Napster, you have kind of these labels not being as needed, right? You don't need these middlemen anymore. This is the flattening of an industry through technology. The technology is replacing these labels and these middlemen. Before that, the middlemen kind of were the technology. That was the paradigm then. It was like the way to do music is you have this technology of this person that does that distribution piece for you, that does that recording piece for you. But now that is unnecessary, right? So yeah. So then with Napster then, because it was so easy to distribute stuff, right? You just put it on Napster, people search for it, people can get it, you can tell people what to search for, you could just have your content there. There's just lots of access to any music, right? So to new artists, this was a great thing. Somebody who wants to get their name out, doesn't have a label, I'll just put my music on Napster and, I'll just start marketing it that way. I'll tell my friends and, people can get it for free. It's super simple and good. So to new musicians, Napster, pretty cool thing, right? To existing musicians, not so cool, of course, because they're like, well, I make money off album sales. How am I going to make money off Napster? This is theft. This is freaking BS. I hate this. So you have this whole kind of problem and controversy going on. So what we're seeing with Napster was a new business model emerging. We're seeing this new technology and this new way of doing things through file sharing and through the internet, like an internet distribution. We were seeing this happening, and an industry that wasn't built that way was now having to figure out, well, how do we adapt for that? And is there still like an industry where we make money after we've adapted to that, right? So that's kind of what's going on. It's kind of like Uber in the sense of, you have existing taxis, and now Uber comes along and people just can become a taxi driver without licensing or any of this legal stuff, and they can make decent money. And it's like, well, consumers are like, well, why do I use a taxi? Uber's better. So you have this better technology now that's kind of superseding the older technology, and the taxi drivers, the old tech, they're like pissed off about it. They're like, well, this sucks. Like, I'm losing out on this. And that's the same thing how these labels and musicians felt with Napster and with file sharing. They're losing out. They're like, well, I'm not getting album sales. These people are stealing my stuff for free. This is terrible. What's going on here? So that is, that's kind of the Napster story, right? So what we're seeing in a sense with this is we're seeing kind of more competition in this market where rather than having kind of a higher barrier to entry to where only, certain people with a label or where it was a lot harder for people to get started, right? Now with computers, personal computers that were like, people had them now, and the internet, it's easier to create this content. So you have a lot more content now. So you have a lot more music being produced. So rather than like 1,000 or so like artists that people might know about or less, Now you have millions of artists. Now you have like millions of songs. You have so much content out there for people to choose from. And I mean, in an economic sense, this is kind of like the point of a market anyway. It's like the whole point of a free market is for consumers, people who listen to music, to have a lot of choices and variety for what they want. It's like when you go to a supermarket, you want a supermarket that has a lot of variety, and then you kind of pick what you want. You don't want just one or two products, right? And with music, you want to have a wide range of variety. You want to be, able to listen to like whatever you want. You want people to compete and have the opportunity to improve their music and do music in innovative and good ways that, take that industry further. You want to really push it as forward as possible. And that's what competition in a market does. And that's what, the internet and technology, file sharing and all this stuff kind of did to the music industry. It kind of shook the old foundation, brought in the new one, and then had this kind of competition and this new selection, this new variety of people in there that just makes it better. So yeah, it becomes like I said, like an economic discussion, right? The consumer wants to listen to good music, and this is kind of what's provided now by having file sharing and a low barrier of entry for people to do that, right? So the whole point is like what happens with a normal free market is things become cheaper and cheaper until eventually they're free, right? So like with information, for instance, it used to cost, money for newspapers or, television was, you still had to pay somewhat for a subscription service or whatnot. You still pay a subscription service for the internet, but information's getting cheaper and it's getting more and more free. And things that we used to have to pay money for like physical objects are now like digital, and they can be delivered for free, like information. And music is information. We used to have to burn that information onto a disc, or we used to have to do it on a cassette tape or things like this. Before that, we used to have to play it live. But now we have ways of using technology to make that information or to make that actual product cheaper and cheaper, to where music is becoming more and more free. And now it basically, music is essentially free. You can like listen to any music for free, right? And that's what happens across industries as technology and just free markets come in and work through them, right? So anyway, what happens though is we get into the ethics side of things, right? So some see file sharing as a bad thing, right? So people are like, well, this is theft, right? These people have copyrights on this content, and now here you come along like stealing it and sharing it for free, right? So it's kind of an interesting thing, because that's kind of how you move a old model forward, is like an existing model of, say, copyright and this being able to sell these albums and like own this information. It's sure, like with that model, it is theft to take something like that and share it. But it's like the new model is showing that maybe those things shouldn't have copyrights. Maybe those things, because they can be easily produced, should be shared. It's like, sure, there's the recognition part and the brand part of like somebody's name being on it. And you don't want to like steal their name and say they didn't do it. People want to be recognized for the music they produce, but actually charging for it may not be the right model, right? It's like, get the person's name out there. A lot of musicians, of course, they want to make money, but the new model might be you use the internet for your distribution and branding, your marketing and sales, and your marketing. But the actual money comes in, through more donations or through live performances or through a different type model that is more built around the technological framework of this new paradigm, this new technology. It's like file sharing isn't going away. The internet's not going away. Free transfer of information is not going away. So you need to readjust the business model around that now. Just like the taxi model is going away to Uber, it's like the label copyright model is going away to free distribution on the internet. So it's like, how do you rework your model to that? Yeah, because a lot of it's not that people want music for free. They just want music easy. They just want to, get something easy. And that's why, you can just go to YouTube now and maybe watch an ad or whatever, then listen to your music. It's super easy. You don't have to go through like the hassle of what you used to have to go through. So you have this new framework, this new foundation that people need to use, and they have to figure out kind of how now you use this new technology to make money. And it's going to be different than the old way, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And yeah, that's kind of where you have this gray area of like, well, is it theft? Isn't it? And it's like, well, according to the old model of copyright and this stuff, yeah, it is theft, right? But this new model is trying to come about, and some people want you to listen to their stuff for free, and they have like other ways to use that to their advantage. And it's like competition in a market. It's like, I mean, that's kind of how this stuff works. If we always just stuck with the old way, we would never advance. Things would never get cheaper. Our standard of living would never go up. So anyway, that's kind of like, in a way, the ethics side of it. So anyway, so back to Napster. Okay, so with Napster, it got a lot of momentum. All this stuff was going on, right? Musicians were really pissed about it. Labels, well, more so the labels were really pissed, like, we're not making money. So, of course, they wanted to shut it down, and they did shut it down. And so the reason why Napster was shut down was because it was a centralized entity that could be targeted, right? So Napster was a business. It like a regular standard company. It had its people that ran it, and it had a location, and it was able to be targeted, right? Where's Napster located? Okay, here it is. Here's the entity. Here are the people involved. You can legally, do what you need to do to shut them down. The government can go after them and take care of that, right? It's a centralized entity. So, Napster was shut down. But of course, once you shut down, a good idea like that, a good company like that, of course there's going to be more. So of course, a ton of other Napster type sites for file sharing and whatnot, pop up. You have all these other ones now. And it's like, so the government, starts going after those, and it can't necessarily shut down all of them, right? It's pretty hard. But of course, the final nail in the coffin was BitTorrent, because all these other file sharing, pieces of software, you would download it. It's a centralized company that's managing it all that can be shut down. But you have this kind of new way to do it, BitTorrent, where it's decentralized, where it's not a centralized entity that does the file sharing. It's split between like just tons of people with their computers that share just different pieces of all the content, all the data, and it gets distributed that way. Nobody owns anything. There's no one entity to go after. It's decentralized. How do you stop that? You don't. That you can't stop, and that's kind of what made the whole music industry. It's like there's not much else they can do at that point. You can't really stop it. So now what they had to do was actually just say, okay, look, this is what's going on. How do we rework this old model of album sales? How do we do it now to where it uses this new technology and we can still make money? And they find ways to do that, like with, through the iTunes store and whatnot. We're going to just sell on a per song basis, make it really easy to download. We'll set up a YouTube channel, and we'll, just do advertising there, but they can listen to the stuff there, and we'll kind of go that route. So they had to adapt. They didn't have a choice at that point. It's like, come on, guys. It's like, okay, well, we just got decentralized file sharing, so good luck. So they had to adapt, and they did. And, that's kind of how it works, right? Through this decentralized means of BitTorrent that they couldn't stop, they were forced to use this new paradigm of, file sharing in a way that, and try to find a way to make it work. And they had to kind of find this happy medium of, okay, yeah, maybe I'm okay paying, for a song, or watching an ad before a song or something like that. But at least I get to use the benefits of like easy access of it, and I can just stream it whenever I want and that kind of stuff. So it's, this is how this new technology kind of permeates through society and the market and finds a way to live. So, but it's important to kind of see how the kind of centralized, decentralized aspect of this works, because that now brings us over back to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, right? Because Bitcoin is to trust as BitTorrents are to data, right? So you have this kind of Bitcoin piece, and of course the main part of it is it's decentralized, right? There's no entity to go after. And now Bitcoin isn't in the data space, it's not in the file sharing space. Bitcoin is in the trust space, or right now more specifically, it's in obviously the finance space, right? So you have this decentralized finance, value transfer going on. And it's like, that's now pressing up against the finance industry. And it's like, Now they're in that same position the music industry was in, except the finance industry is like the industry. It's huge. It's like that's like the main industry. So you got this piece going on, and it's creating now a new challenge for society in the world to kind of figure out, like, how is this going to fit in? How are the old financial institutions going to work? And how is this new technology, this new way of doing, value exchange and doing trust in a decentralized way, how is that going to work? And are we going to be able to take those decentralized ways, make them centralized with the positive attributes of it, and make it somehow kind of work like YouTube or something? It's like, well, that's kind of what we have to see and figure out moving forward. Right. So, but we do know, I mean, this finance industry, they're obviously not going to go down without a fight. So they'll use the government in any way they can to make it illegal. The question is, will that stop people? Will people stop doing it? Right. So, in the past, if you look at history, people in power or these, governments have, tried to sequester, certain pieces of technology or whatnot. But, once they get out, it's really hard to stop the idea once people kind of know that it can be done that way. Like with the printing press, that just couldn't be stopped, right? The internet, I mean, there's things they're trying to do and whatnot, but it's going to be pretty hard to stop the idea of a free information exchange kind of system now that people know about kind of how that type of thing can work, right? The music industry, didn't quite work stopping file sharing and that kind of stuff. And with the finance industry, we're going to have the same type of thing happen. They're not going to be able to stop kind of the main part of Bitcoin. So they're going to have to figure out how to make it work, or they're just going to destroy themselves in the process. That's just kind of the way it goes with this new technology stuff. So yeah, if there is one industry that needs this flattening and needs kind of this competition, it's most certainly government, because there hasn't been competition of money for a long time. So that's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But now another part of it is not all governments are the same, and they don't all see things the same way, right? Governments, the same way we have businesses that compete against other businesses, right? Competition in business. To a degree, we have competition in governments too, right? Different governments compete against other governments. So if one government is like, we're going to make Bitcoin illegal, well, then another government might be like, that's pretty stupid. We're not going to do that. We're going to, show people how we're not making it illegal, and we're going to market around that. And more people, that are into crypto, into Bitcoin stuff, they're going to be like, okay, great. This country's like super cool. They're like, they kind of get it. They're not trying to hold on to the old way, trying to control everything and hold this new advancement back. They're embracing it. And that is kind of another piece. That makes it kind of harder to make Bitcoin illegal. It's like, yeah, one or two countries might do it. Maybe even some of the bigger countries might do it, but it's just going to be an opportunity for other countries to not do it and benefit people because of it. And with something as big as Bitcoin, something as like groundbreaking, it's like almost, or it probably is at the level of like the internet, right? So it's like, if a country were to outlaw the internet, make it illegal, that's kind of stupid. That's kind of a problem. It's like, who's going to want to be there now? Who's going to voluntarily choose to be there? And it's a similar thing with Bitcoin, right? So it's like, there's other governments, and other governments aren't going to do it, and that's going to be a huge opportunity for them. So yeah. But either way, I really think the government is kind of irrelevant to crypto the same way they are to file sharing. It's like, there's things they can do. They could make it illegal, but I mean, people are still going to use it. They're not going to stop using it. And it's going to continue to advance and find ways into kind of the markets and into society, right? So the tech is not going away. It's here. We know that it's possible now to do banking, to do this trust value exchange outside of traditional like law or contracts or that kind of thing. We have like kind of new ways to do that now. People know about that, so it's hard to stop that, right? It's like, it's known. If you somehow take Bitcoin down, there's thousands of others. It's just, you can't stop that, right? So you have to stop it some other way, which is it's just hard to do. It's like, what are you going to do? You can make file sharing illegal. It doesn't stop anyone. They just keep going, right? It's like, this is, people want to move society forward. This is how you do it. people get it, and it's like, why are you trying to stop them from moving society forward, right? Because, I mean, to people, like crypto people, people that are kind of pushing things forward, it's not about breaking the law. It's about embracing a better way of doing things. We just want to do something better. People see, kind of the laws as the current way of doing things. And now there's, to move forward, you kind of have to see how you restructure those laws around the new technology, the new thoughts, the new ideas, right? And the law sometimes does lag behind, and it sometimes tries to play its hand too heavy to keep something from happening, because, lots of political reasons, right? But yeah, when something that makes your life better is made illegal, you have to really stop and ask yourself if the government has your best interest at heart, because that makes no sense whatsoever, right? So yeah, leave you with a quote by Voltaire. He says, quote, "It is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong," end quote. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye-bye.